Oh yeah, look at those numbers going up. Good evening and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to wait just a few minutes to get fully started and let everybody get in and settle. We are so excited to have you join us tonight. We're going to learn all about the first step of transforming your lawn into a beautiful, water-wise, habitat-providing landscape. While everybody is joining us, we'd love to hear a few things about you. If you could use the chat box to type in your name, what city you're joining us from tonight, what you're hoping to learn about today, and to make it a little bit fun, give us 3 words to describe the soil in your yard or near your home. And I'll read those out loud as they come in. Use the chat box. We've got Stephanie from Santa Rosa. She's got some clay soil. Tell us about your soil. Kathy Galvin, she says her soil is concrete, cement, adobe. That does not sound fun. We have Charlotte from San Francisco, who's got some sandy soil. That's something you don't hear very often in Sonoma County, that's for sure. We've got Terry from Rohnert Park, who's got clay, dead grass. Megan and Jerry from Santa Rosa are talking about some adobe soil. Now those are terms that I'm way more familiar with. We've got someone, Susan from Livermore, who's got some alkaline soil, and she'd like to learn where to get rolled cardboard. We'll definitely be talking about that a little bit today. I'm seeing sandy and dry. Carolyn, I'm wondering where you're from, where your soil is sandy and dry. Nancy from Santa Rosa says the front yard is about 500 square feet and she's letting it die back and it's adobe hard as a rock. Oh no. I'm seeing a lot of lawns that are dried up now that we've turned off sprinklers and they want to clean up the area. So great, you're in the right place. I like Charlene's answer. Charlene from Santa Rosa, clay, hard packed, need a pickaxe. We definitely have a couple of those in the daily act shed. A lot of people getting rid of their front lawn, so exciting. Philip from Pengrove says there's generally a sandy loam. I love the terminology. We've got some soil people in here. Jody from Santa Rosa says, giving up my lawn, yay. Dead grass in Windsor. Okay, it's been a few minutes. I think we could probably jump in and get started right about now. Thank you everybody for sharing a little bit about yourself and your city and giving us those words for the soil. Oh, okay, I have to share one more. Megan says that her lawn is dead, hard adobe, but moles and gophers are still having a heyday. Anybody have some mole or gopher advice for Megan? Go ahead and type that in the chat box. Sweet. Thank you everyone for sharing. So I guess we can get started. My name is Serena Consulter. I'm a programs coordinator with Daily Acts, and we are joined today by Annie Silverman, a landscape instructor who's going to be teaching us all about sheet mulching. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Daily Acts, Annie, if you could switch to the next slide. We are a holistic environmental education organization whose mission is to inspire transformative action that creates connected, equitable, and climate resilient communities. We are excited to present to you tonight's webinar in partnership with the City of Santa Rosa, as we're hosting a series of 4 webinars together this year. This is our 3rd of the series of 4, so we'll share our final webinar about rain catchment at the end of this webinar. Let's go over a little bit of Zoom etiquette so we can make the most of our time together this evening. If a question arises during the presentation, please use the Q&A chat box so we can make sure your question gets answered. I want to rephrase that because I said both words. Make sure you use the Q&A box, which you'll see down at the bottom. It says Q&A separate from the chat box. If you have any ideas you want to save or any resources or any fun facts that you know, because we all know you have a wealth of knowledge and we'd love to hear that from you, make sure you use the chat box to share those ideas and let them flow throughout the presentation. We love to see it. We will be recording this presentation and we'll make it available to you in a follow-up email. If you've previously unsubscribed from Daily Act emails, make sure to resubscribe to our follow-up resources email category to receive the link to the recording in addition to all of the resources we'll send you. Before we dive in, the city of Santa Rosa had just a few slides they'd like us to share in regards to the current drought that we're all facing. As you can see here on the slide, we've received 38% of our average rainfall to date in Santa Rosa. We have two lakes where our water supply comes from, Lake Sonoma and Lake Mendocino. They are very low in what we'd want to be hoping for right now in late August. Our watershed is experiencing what may become the driest period ever, but we can all do our part to preserve and extend our water supply, and implementing what you learned in today's webinar will definitely help with that. These photos were taken several months ago, so we can only imagine how it looks now. Lake Mendocino supplies water to our northern communities, including Healdsburg, while Lake Sonoma supplies to all the communities south, including Santa Rosa. On the right, you can see there's a couple of free yard signs available, and we'll include information on where you can get one to put in your beautiful new low water use sheet mulch landscape in our follow-up email. On June 29th, the city of Santa Rosa adopted a stage 3 of the water storage contingency plan with a mandatory 20% reduction in water use, which includes restrictions and prohibitions that we're going to go over in just a moment. In addition to the prohibitions and restrictions on water use, Santa Rosa is also asking all residents to eliminate water waste and adopt water conserving behaviors. We're all in this together, and it's important that we make every drop count. So the first one is can you go back one? Thanks, Annie. Using potable water for washing hard surfaces is currently prohibited. Use a broom instead and get a little workout in too. Pressure washing with potable water is also prohibited. This is more for commercial use, but you can actually obtain a variance in order to pressure wash on the City of Santa Rosa's website. For example, you can get a variance to pressure wash your house if you scheduled a contractor to come and paint your house. Water waste due to breaks, leaks, or excess is prohibited, but we'll let you in on a little secret. This is actually always illegal to waste water in the City of Santa Rosa. It's extra important right now, though, to make sure that we're making every drop count and not letting anything go to waste. The City of Santa Rosa actually has a lot of resources to help you out and make sure you're not wasting any water, and we'll definitely send you those resource links in our follow-up email. Hose and shutoff nozzles are required for all hoses. The city is actually giving away those for free for residents and water customers, so we'll include information about that in our follow-up email. And the last one, landscape irrigation is limited to the hours of 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. to help prevent that evaporation from happening. If you have an irrigation controller, make sure you take a look at what time you have it set for. Who knows if you set it years ago. The City of Santa Rosa also wants to make sure you know about their water use efficiency program services and the ways in which they can help your home and your business. There are quite a few rebates and incentives, including residential and commercial checkups that include virtual, indoor, and in-person outdoor check-ins, as well as free hardware, such as hose nozzles, shower heads, kitchen nozzles, and more. And they do a lot of education, like this wonderful program that they're supporting today, including free workshops and lots of literature. They also have a lot of tools, including Water Smart Yard and a website with tons of resources. We'll send you a link to check it all out in our follow-up email. And exciting news, if you're a City of Santa Rosa resident planning to transform your irrigated lawn with some sheet mulching after attending tonight's webinar, you have to take advantage of this rebate. The Cash for Grass rebate has been doubled from 75 cents per square foot to $1.50. So with this rebate, the City of Santa Rosa will cover up to $1,500 to cover the cost of your project to convert your lawn to a beautiful water-wise landscape. There's also irrigation efficiency updates covered by the rebate too. So if you'd like to take advantage of these rebates, you must pre-qualify before you start your project, before you start your sheet mulching. So they'll either pre-qualify you over the phone or they'll come out and do a pre-inspection. And we'll send you a link to learn more about that in our follow-up email. So here's a screenshot of the City of Santa Rosa's website. So you can call 707-543-3985, which we'll send you in our email. or you can email watersmart@srcity.org, or you can visit their website at www.srcity.org/watersmart to learn more about everything that we just covered in these slides. So now is the moment that we've all been waiting for. It's time for Annie to teach us all about sheet mulching. Annie, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks for the introduction, Serena. My name's Annie Silverman. I was a senior programs coordinator with Daily Acts for 3 years, where I had the opportunity to teach all sorts of webinars and workshops and hands-on installations about various topics, including sheet mulching. I'm so excited to be here tonight to be able to talk about one of the most important strategies for starting your journey towards a beautiful water-wise garden, which is sheet mulching. Before we get into that how-to, we're going to do an overview of soil composition. It sounds like a lot of you already really know about soil and soil composition, but we'll just give a general overview of that and then talk about the benefits of sheet mulching before launching into step-by-step instructions of how to do it. And we'll have plenty of time for a Q&A. And I look forward to receiving your questions as they come in too. If Serena thinks that they're really important to answer, she will interrupt and I can answer them in live time, but otherwise we'll save a lot of those questions for the end of the presentation. All right, so let's get into it. So soil is actually 25% oxygen, 25% water, 45% mineral content, which is that sand, silt, and clay, and then 5% organic matter. And this is kind of the ideal breakdown of soil. And that really surprised me when I was first learning about soil, is that it does have so much space for water and oxygen. It's really important to be able to nurture that. So some people said that their soil was kind of loamy, and that's wonderful. Some people said theirs was really sandy or adobe hard packed clay. All soil is some combination of sand, silt, and clay. And those are traits that really can't be changed. It's kind of like your eye color or your height. Those are just inherent qualities. However, you can really shift the way the soil feels and smells and its ability to nurture plant life and absorb water. And even that really hard packed adobe soil that some of you talked about can have this really rich, really porousy quality that's capable of supporting plant life and storing so much soil. And it can be loose. You can just dig your hand into it and see that your soil is teeming with life. And that's all possible no matter what type of soil you have existing in your backyard or front yard or whatever space right now, through really focusing on growing your organic soil or the percentage of organic matter in the soil. And so the organic matter is made up of 10% organisms, 10% roots, and 80% of something called humus. And humus is that organic component of soil. It's formed by decomposition of leaf matter and plant matter and roots and all and wood chips, all sorts of things decomposing forms that humus, which is this really rich space for microorganisms to thrive. And as those microorganisms are growing and thriving, they're kind of wiggling around and they're creating these little pathways in your soil, which helps increase the amount of oxygen capacity for that soil and really starts to open it up. And then once it opens up, there's just more microorganisms that thrive and it becomes this really beneficial cycle of soil health. And so we're about to learn how to start that out. And it's so important because we are in what could be the driest years on record, and soil has the capacity to store so much water. In fact, for every 1% increase in soil organic matter, which is a really key indicator of soil health, an acre stores an estimated 20,000 gallons of additional water, which is about as much water as the average swimming pool holds. And so just through nurturing and tending to our soil, we can store so much water there. And that water is then accessible for plants when they need it. And then those plants themselves can generate more water through the soil water nexus, which is something that's really fascinating. And Daily Acts has resources on that. And I highly recommend that you check out Daily Acts resources on the soil water nexus and the soil water climate nexus and just nerd out on that topic. It's fascinating. But this is the first step is sheet mulching, is really building that soil quality. So there are so many benefits of sheet mulching. One is that it composts your lawn in place. If you're at a point where you're thinking of eliminating your lawn and really planting that water-wise beautiful landscape that you've always dreamed of, you don't have to haul away that lawn or rototill it or really do anything that's labor intensive. I mean, sheet mulching is a little labor intensive, but it's less labor intensive than physically digging up and removing that lawn. So sheet mulching is a process in which your lawn actually composts in place and provides nutrients and benefit to your soil and to your plants. It improves soil quality by growing that percentage of organic matter in your soil through the process of layering compost, well, cardboard first, then compost, and then wood chips. It reduces your water use because you're keeping that soil covered and you're trapping in humidity, but you're also growing your soil's natural ability to store water, which is just like mind-blowing that your soil can actually be this giant reservoir so that when it rains, that water percolates into the soil column and stays there instead of sheeting off and then flowing into the streets and then into the storm drains and into our rivers and then ultimately out into the bay, where it actually becomes a stormwater problem because it carries away all of the pollution that it encounters along the way. So by sheet mulching your space, you're really turning your lawn into this just sponge that captures soil. It'll save you money in the long run, definitely reduces your irrigation and your water bill, and just provides this blank slate for that eco landscape that we have lots of resources to help you dream of. So before you get started, it's important to take a pretty close look at the space that you would like to sheet mulch and see if you have any invasive plants. In the picture to the left, that's Bermuda grass. And I'm sure that many of you are familiar with Bermuda grass. It is such a tenacious plant. You really have to give it a pat on the shoulder for being so good at thriving. And it can have roots that are more than 18 inches deep, and it spreads rhizominously, and so it spreads kind of underground, and it can be really, really hard to get rid of. And the same goes for the photo on the right, which is crabgrass. So if you have either one of those, if you sheet mulch over that, the chances are that they'll just regrow, and they could take over your newly sheet mulch space pretty quickly and outcompete whatever plants that you would like to put in there. And so if you have really kind of big patches of either one of these, we recommend a process called sheet mulching. Another beautiful, I find this really beautiful, but can be invasive plant is Oxalis or yellow wood sorrel. I have some in my yard, my front yard, and it actually tastes pretty good. The tender young leaves have kind of a nice sour taste to them. It can be good in salads, but it spreads aggressively. It is invasive. We certainly don't recommend propagating it. But if you see that, if you do sheet mulch over that, you're likely to see that reoccur too. So that's where we recommend this process of solarizing. Now, solarizing is a process in which you put UV treated plastic over the space lawn or something else that you would like to eliminate. That UV treated plastic creates this greenhouse. So you put the UV treated plastic down during the hottest months, making sure to secure it really well, because any level of wind over a big sheet of plastic will get there and just rip it up. So you really have to secure it more than you would think you would need to, more than just the four corners. And So that's secured during the hottest months without any perforations in it, which is also kind of hard because animals can walk across it and perforate it, or your footsteps. So it's a little bit of a challenge keeping it secured, no perforations. And so that covers the space over the hottest months, creating this greenhouse effect, which then kills off the roots in the top inches of soil and can basically sterilize that soil, which will eliminate, not fully eliminate, crabgrass or Bermuda grass, because their root systems do go so deep that they go deep enough that the heat doesn't affect them. But it does kill off those top layers, which can make managing it a lot easier. The photo on the right is of the Petaluma Library, the backside of the Petaluma Library. Daliax has a gorgeous model site there. And Daliax did have to solarize because there was a lot of Bermuda grass in that space. And so they solarized, and then they got in there and scraped away the top 6 inches, 6 to 9 inches of soil after solarizing to really try and eliminate the Bermuda grass. That was aggressive, and it's probably more than you'll need to do in your space. But if you have a really bad Bermuda grass or crabgrass problem, that is one thing you can do. So there are benefits and drawbacks to this. The benefits are that it kills weed seeds and shallow roots. It's non-toxic, and it's pretty passive. Once you put that sheet of plastic down and secure it, then you're just waiting. The downsides to it are that it sterilizes the top few inches of soil, and it kills off the microorganisms that are in that top few inches of soil because you're heating it up. I mean, so much so that it doesn't support life. And it doesn't kill deep roots. It only heats up the top few inches of soil, so anything that's deeper than that is not going to be affected by it. But it is a really effective way of knocking back invasives enough so that you can manage them in the future. All right, so now you're ready to get started sheet mulching, and we'll review some of the tools that you'll need. Somebody mentioned that their soil is so rock hard you need a pickaxe to get into it. And so pickaxe is number 1 on our list of tools that you'll need to be able to start this process called edging, which we'll go over. And then a trenching shovel is really helpful for that process of edging. So is a flathead shovel. Hand trowels are great for digging around. Sprinkler heads, wheelbarrows for transporting all your materials. Pitchforks are great for mulch. Snow shovels are too. Rakes to spread it all out. Push broom because cleaning up is so important. Box cutters to cut the cardboard, and gloves to protect your tender hands, which may not be accustomed to all the work that you are about to do, but many hands make light work. So have a party, invite some friends over, have some food in COVID safe ways, and make it a community effort because it's really fun when you do it in groups of people. And you can transform your landscape from this before to after. And this was actually a project that we were all involved, Serena and I were involved with in Windsor. It was a home site transformation there. And I wish I had the third picture, which is what it looks like after they planted. It's really, really beautiful. So you can start with this lawn and end up with just this gorgeous garden in a matter of months. And Daliax has all of the resources and past recordings and various different plant lists to help get you there. The materials that you'll need are recycled cardboard, organic complete compost, and arbor mulch. And before I get into the step-by-step, I just want to highlight that there is a big difference between cardboard and this weed fabric. I see weed fabric go down a lot. And I think that the perception is that it's more effective at blocking out weeds than cardboard. And I would actually disagree that in the long run, it's not more effective than cardboard, because what happens is when you put mulch over, that mulch breaks down and becomes a receptive bed for seeds that then germinate on top of that weed fabric, grow into the weed fabric, and then kind of render it not so useful. Also, that weed fabric never decomposes totally. It becomes not so useful because it breaks and things come up through it and things come in on top of it, but it never goes anywhere. So if you ever want to, say, plant more plants or redesign your landscape, you'll be pulling out shreds of fabric for 50, 75, 100, for a very, very long time. It just doesn't go anywhere. Whereas cardboard actually blocks weeds the same way that weed fabric does. It breaks down over time, and it is a benefit to your soil health by adding carbon. And it is a recycled product, and we really recommend using cardboard instead of weed fabric. In fact, I don't think the city of Santa Rosa rebate will allow you to lay down weed fabric. So the first step of sheet mulching is to create a trench that's about 1 foot in length at a 45-degree angle around the perimeter of your site and around any other hardscaping and paths. And what this does is allows for a nice little trench for the cardboard to flow into without breaking. And then it allows for you to secure that cardboard with mulch so that the mulch is actually at the same level or just a little bit below the concrete border or whatever border it is. So it keeps things looking really nice and tidy. Mulch isn't spilling out over your pathways or over the sidewalk. And that's where a lot of the labor is creating those trenches to contain the mulch. The next step is to identify which sprinkler head you would like to convert to drip irrigation. So you'll identify that, flag it in some way, and then you will dig out all the other sprinkler heads, unscrew the sprinkler, and so you'll just have that riser, and take away the sprinkler, and then screw on a cap, being careful not to damage pipes that feed into those sprinklers. So what you're doing is effectively limiting or eliminating places where water will flow and just focusing on that one area, which you will then convert into a T where you can plug in your drip irrigation. So these caps are really, really inexpensive. And the important thing when purchasing your caps is to make sure that they are the right diameter for the pipe, for the riser that you have. 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. I think you can dig it out and take a look and see. But if you buy the wrong size, they're less than $1 each. All right, so that sprinkler that you flagged, you'll then unscrew the sprinkler head and screw in basically a kit that replaces the sprinkler. It has a pressure regulator and a filter in it, because you always need those when you're installing drip irrigation. And then it will look like, the device looks like this. It's about $30 or so. And that's what it looks like when it's installed. And you can just screw in the irrigation tubing that you'll use and go from there to be able to create your above ground drip irrigation system. The next step is to cover the entire area with overlapping layers of cardboard, and that helps prevent unwanted vegetation from growing. Cardboard also is a source of carbon, which feeds the soil microorganisms and helps to create a really receptive, healthy area for those microorganisms to thrive. Then spread 1 to 2 inches of compost across the lawn or landscape. Compost helps the lawn break down and compost in place, and it holds down the cardboard and hides it from view. It also provides some nutrients for the plants that you're about to plant. And then, so this is where you can do a little bit of choose your own adventure, and you can plant immediately. And so the drawbacks to planting immediately are that your lawn hasn't really composted in place yet, but it will. And by cutting holes in the cardboard at this stage, it's points where some weed growth could come up in that area. So you want to be very careful that you are definitely pulling weeds around the plants as you've cut into your defense layer. And we've done this a lot of times, though. Sometimes we'll do garden in a day where we will sheet mulch and plant all in the same day, and they end up being very successful gardens. So you can plant then, or well, you would plant and then roll out irrigation. And the benefit of doing this at this stage is that you're able to really just complete the project all at once. You know, you're building on that momentum of sheet mulching and planting, and you're able to roll out your irrigation and then cover it with that arbor mulch. And the arbor mulch helps suppress unwanted plant growth. It helps maintain and retain water, which is so important. And it decomposes over time, which is building soil health as it decomposes, which does mean that you will need to replace that mulch every few years. So that's one option, is you plant, you spread the cardboard, then the compost, then you cut in and you plant, and then you lay your irrigation lines, and then you cover it all with mulch, and then, you know, voila, you're done. And that's really exciting. The other option is that you go through all of this. So you lay out, you do the cardboard, and then the compost, and then the mulch. And then you can wait and allow it to decompose in place for a few months. Oftentimes we would sheet mulch now, and then we would allow the lawn to decompose in place over the rainy season, assuming that we do have a rainy season this winter. And then we would go back and plant in March or April. So, you know, it really just depends on the situation that you are in and whether you want to complete your project all at once. You have a lot of momentum, you have a plan, you just really want to go for it, or whether you really want to sheet mulch now because you are going to take advantage of the city of Santa Rosa's rebate and then take the winter to plan out your garden, allow that lawn to decompose in place, and then plant. And either way, you will have a successful landscape. So don't feel like there's one right way to do this. There really isn't one right way to do this. There's just some benefits and drawbacks to everything. And the city of Santa Rosa, if you are going to partake in their rebate structure, they have a certain time period that they would like you to complete the project and then have your post-inspection. But if you do want to wait for that landscape to decompose in place and it falls outside of that time period, they are very flexible and you can extend your time period once, and that will give you extra time to be able to complete the project. So there's a lot of support for you to do this. One of the drawbacks that we've experienced when we have let our landscapes decompose in place, our lawns decompose in place, and then come back and planted, and then we've rolled out the irrigation lines, is that we've gotten more mulch to cover those lines, but the mulch has not been of the same color as the original mulch. And so as we put mulch on to cover those lines, we had what looked like some zebra striping going on. And so that's just a warning that if you do choose to allow your lawn to decompose in place and then you go back and plant, roll out those irrigation lines and then cover them back up with some more mulch, it's really important to get the same type of mulch. So if you used arbor mulch, make sure you use arbor mulch again and maybe test it out in like a small spot and just make sure that it's going to blend well enough. And if it doesn't blend well enough, because arbor mulch, you can't always control what it looks like. It's kind of what has been brought to facilities to be ground up. It's one of the beautiful things of arbor mulch is that it is actually a recycled, waste product. So you can't always control exactly what's in it. But if it's really different from the existing color of your mulch, you can just get a little bit more and provide, like a half an inch or an inch over the entire landscape. So we've learned our lessons on what to do when we've ended up having two very different colors of mulch and had kind of a funny design in our landscape. I wanted to show off some pictures of just beautiful, beautiful landscaping projects where sheet mulching has happened. This is a picture of that very same library that got solarized and then scraped. And it is so gorgeous. And actually the library has a beautiful front garden too, that's created and cared for by the master gardeners. And then in back is the Drawbacks habitat garden. So many beautiful gardens to explore at the Petaluma Library. And then this is actually at Santa Rosa Junior College's main campus. This was a project that was done in collaboration with the Water Agency and Conservation Corps North Bay to create and sheet mulch. You can see the lawn in the background. And then to sheet mulch that and create this beautiful rain garden. Have to highlight the City of Santa Rosa's City Hall landscape. It is a really stunning example of a more modern design that features beautiful grasses and other waterwise plants, just amazing signs that explain the process and the benefits of the plant selection and the sheet mulching process, and a lot to look at there. So I recommend checking that one out as well. And I wanted to leave you with the inspiration that you could go from a lawn on the left to this beautiful, diverse landscape that's teeming with life, that supports so many different pollinators. It provides so much different habitat. It provides food for you and medicine for you and just so much beauty for the neighborhood. And when one person makes the decision to plant these really diverse, beautiful ecological landscapes, we find that other people do too. And so you can be a catalyst for even greater change in your neighborhood without really knowing it. Just simply by doing it, you can create a lot of change and help save a lot of water. And so that is the end of the formal presentation. And we wanted to leave a lot of time for questions and answers. Serena is also an expert on this subject matter. So I will ask her to join in the questions and answers. Serena has a lot of irrigation knowledge and background. She's going to be teaching a webinar next week, I believe, on how to cap your sprinkler heads in preparation for this whole sheet mulching process. So if you have a lot of questions around that, you can certainly ask them now, but Serena will be teaching a more in-depth conversation. It'll be a meeting where people can ask their questions and get more information about how you cap an existing sprinkler system and turn it into a drip irrigation system to support this beautiful water-wise landscape. And so with that, I am going to, and you can send any additional questions that you have to Serena at serena@drawbacks.org. And she's also going to compile an email that lists out all of the resources that were mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, all of the City of Santa Rosa's resources, as well as any other resources that might come up during this question and answer time. And so don't feel like you have to frantically take notes or that you might be missing something, because you'll get a copy of these slides and you'll also get that follow-up email that has so many resources that are a part of it. And so I'm really looking forward to getting into the chat and Q&A.
Yeah, let's do it. Perfect. So we'll get started. We've got quite a list of questions going, and keep adding them if you guys have thought of anything else, or if you added something to the chat box and I asked you to move it to the Q&A, go ahead and do that as well. One thing I just want to address right off the bat is a comment that was made by Laura A. She said one other drawback to the use to solarizing is the use of plastic. I don't think that was on the list, and I just really resonated with that. Unfortunately, don't have a better solution for solarizing, so the UV treated plastic is the only way we have to go right now. But just thanks for showing that care. We appreciate it.
Definitely, and the UV treated part is important. Because the sun will break down other plastics. And so it makes it really hard to just recycle a sheet of plastic that you might have had for other reasons, because it probably will break down over that 3 to 4 month period of intense sunlight and just become plastic shreds in your landscape. So unfortunately, it does have to be UV treated.
Yeah, and that's the answer to Diane's question too. Diane's question was if UV treated plastic is the same as black plastic and lets no sunlight through. UV treated plastic is clear, I believe, right, Annie?
I think it can come in different colors, but we actually recommend clear plastic. It does heat up more.
Perfect. Another question we got was, our lot is a fire rebuild, so there's no lawn there now, and we don't plan on adding a lawn back. Do we still qualify for a cash for grass rebate?
I think that's a question that's really best answered by the city of Santa Rosa. It's my understanding that you did need to have an existing lawn because it's about water reduction, but I think that's best for the city of Santa Rosa.
David, we'll follow up with you with hopefully a resource for that. Thanks for asking. Another question that I don't personally know the answer to, so Annie, maybe you do, is with solarizing, if it's a shaded area, will Bermuda grass still be killed? Because my understanding is that it has to reach like temperature of like 120 degrees or something for like 6 weeks straight to kill off that Bermuda grass. But
yeah, if it's really deep shade all summer long, then it probably won't heat up enough to reach those high temperatures to kill off Bermuda grass. So I would say it won't work in deep shade, but if it does get 4 to 6 hours of shade, then it'll probably be effective, but not as effective as it would be if it had full sun.
Which leads into our next question from Philip. He asked, how many years does the cardboard last? And would one ever double or triple layer the cardboard?
Definitely. So on projects that we have sheet mulched, we will double and triple layer that cardboard if it seems like there's a lot of unwanted plants. I won't necessarily call them weeds, but unwanted plants. And so we have doubled up on that or tripled up on that before. And the hope is that it lasts long enough for you to be able to establish plants. And so that it's almost like you want it to decompose because that really helps feed the soil. And so you want it to last long enough to be able to establish plants, have them grow in, outcompete, and then it dissolves and you don't really need that weed protection anymore. It kind of depends on the conditions that it's in for how long it will last. If it's exposed to a lot of water, then it will decompose a lot faster than if it's really dry. And so it really just depends how long it lasts. But in our experience, as long as there really isn't a lot of pressure from unwanted plants, putting down that cardboard is enough to give you a window of time to be able to establish your plants and then have those grow in. But with any type of landscape action, there's always maintenance. And so especially in those first couple months after you planted, it is really important to get in there and do hand weeding and make sure that you're just giving your plants plenty of space to be able to grow and outcompete.
Great answer. And then we have a question. So Beth, who's labeled as finance group, says, we have large oak trees that leave our soil acidic and our lawn area shaded. Do you have resources to help identify what plants are best suited for this environment?
We do. Yes. Yeah, we do. My colleague Connor put together a really great resource. It was a plant selection office hours conversation, and it's archived on Daily Act's website. And in that, he talks about plants that are really great under the oak understory. And I can name off a couple. Ferns are really lovely in that oak understory. There's also a lot of edible berry bushes that can thrive in that oak understory. Some of my favorites are ribes or currants really thrive in that kind of dappled light. We have a couple in our yard. And so it can be a really fun area to play with what grows well in shade. I wouldn't say that it is a constraint, but it's a constraint that can allow for a lot of creativity and fun plant selection.
Perfect. And I just sent Beth a link to that webinar recording as well. So,
oh, great.
And anybody else who's wondering, all of our previous webinars are recorded on our website at dailyax.org/webinars. David wants to know what the process of replacing mulch is and how does one dispose of old mulch? And I mean, just coming from Daily Act's experience, I don't think we ever pull out old mulch. That sounds like a lot of work. Over the years, it's just going to decompose a little bit and break down. And typically when you're adding mulch, you want that layer to be 2 to 3 inches thick. So just put on that new layer and call it a day. What do you think, Annie?
Yeah, that's the beauty of sheet mulching and these mulch landscapes is that they do require maintenance, but it's pretty It's seasonal maintenance and you'll do some pruning here and there and some mulch replacement. It really isn't daily or weekly or even really monthly maintenance. And so by replacing that mulch, once you've noticed that the mulch is decomposed and it's turning into soil and you can kind of like peel back and there's just really not very much mulch there, then you can get another load of mulch delivered to your house and you'll just spread it out over your landscape.
Kathy, you have a very specific question about the rebate that I'm actually going to save for a follow-up email because I don't know the answer to it. So just so you know, I'm not ignoring your question, but I think we'll save that for when I can get you a solid answer on the rebate. So we're going to go next to Stephanie's question of, do I have to do sheet mulching in order to receive the rebate? I'm thinking of DG with paths and containers.
So there's the city, we can help provide more specific information about that, but the city does not require you to go through the process of sheet mulching as a form of eliminating lawn. There are other ways to eliminate your lawn, and the city does not require you to sheet mulch. And I'm not sure if they have more specific requirements for the ratio of semi-permeable or hardscaping to plants. But you definitely don't have to sheet mulch. It's not the only way to eliminate a lawn.
Perfect. Next question, which has been a super relevant question with, fire season becoming more and more prevalent in Sonoma County. I want to address the second part of this question first. Aren't rocks more fire resistant than mulch?
So we really defer to Fire Safe Marin, and I think we can give you some resources there. They advocate for a zone 0 in which there's very little growing in that first 5. My blurred background makes my hands a little blurry too, but that first 5 feet around any structure that could burn. So that includes your house, that includes a porch, that includes a shed. You give yourself a 5 feet buffer. And in that 5 feet, it's recommended that you use non-flammable materials. And that could be quarry fines, it could be decomposed granite, it could be rock. And there's a lot of different options there. And then in that zone 1, which is that 5 to 30 feet, you follow Fire Safe Marin's best practices. And their best practices do actually include mulching, because mulch helps retain water on site, and a hydrated landscape is actually a fire resilient landscape. And I should mention that a hydrated landscape and a well cared for landscape are fire resilient landscapes. And so that means pruning, that means really making sure that your plants are healthy, and mulch supports really healthy plants by helping grow that really healthy soil and retaining water.
And then the first part of that question was about a referral list of people who know how to accomplish the project. And I think we definitely have one of those laying around. So I'll make sure to include that in our follow-up email. But we really meant it. Like, if you can get a group of your neighbors together to come and help you out with it, and you can help them do it as well. Like, Daily Acts is all about community, and it's just so fun to do it all together. Just putting it out there. So then David was asking, a couple of people asked this question, Annie, that we didn't cover in the PowerPoint about where people can get supplies from in Sonoma County.
Yeah, I can tell you a couple of places off the cuff. It does not represent a comprehensive list of places. And so I might not list some places where you can get supplies, but we have sourced from Grab and Grow in the past. You can get recycled cardboard from Grab and Grow. You can get the compost, and you can get all of the materials that you need, minus the irrigation supplies from Grab and Grow. You can also get supplies from SBI. SBI has mulch. They also have some of the materials that you would need for zone 0. I do not think that Grab and Grow has the supplies that you would need for zone 0 if you wanted to do that quarry fines, decomposed granite, rock, pebble, whatever that might be, flagstones, whatever you want in that zone 0. I think you would have to go elsewhere than Grab and Grow. SBI does have those materials, and Y8 irrigation is a good source of irrigation in Sonoma County, both in Petaluma and in Santa Rosa. And I know I'm missing some places, but those are just If you have your favorite places, it'd be great to put those in the chat too. And especially if you live outside of Sonoma County or in Sonoma, the city of Sonoma, and you have some favorite places, we'd love to hear from you too, where you get your resources.
Perfect. And cardboard rolls you can get from Grab and Go too, correct?
Yeah, cardboard rolls you can get from Grab and Go. If you have a fairly small space, I would say you can also get your cardboard from the recycling bin. You can save up boxes yourself, or you can also go to big box stores and see if you can get cardboard from them. We have done some smaller projects with donated kind of pieces of cardboard boxes. It's a little more work piecing them together, but if you have some existing plants that you want to sheet mulch around, having smaller pieces can actually be easier for you than having that roll that you just roll out. The rolls are really great when you have pure lawn and you can just like tip it and send it rolling, and you can sheet mulch, or you can spread that cardboard over a lot of space quickly. So
yeah, exactly. I was going to say, if you have existing plants on your landscape, it's actually way easier to use recycled cardboard because you can kind of piece it all together instead of trying to lift that giant roll of cardboard over a plant and cut a hole into it. It's not fun. I've done it before. Wouldn't recommend.
Yeah, and there are a couple of things to consider with cardboard. It's best to stay away from cardboard that's really ink heavy. If it's waxed, like a lot of cardboard that is used for fruit is going to be waxed, and that won't decompose as quickly, or so we don't recommend the waxed cardboard. And then really take the tape off. I have sheet mulched pieces of my yard using cardboard boxes, and we didn't remove all of the tape, and it was kind of a lazy thing in the moment, and I'm still finding little pieces of tape in our yard 3 years later. So spend the extra time, take the tape off, and yeah, get started with cardboard boxes that you might have around. I'd say the cardboard is actually
go ahead. Susan, I'll provide a link to where you can get that cardboard from in our follow-up resource email. Perfect. So I think that covers where to get supplies from. So I'll mark that one as done. And then this is a great question that actually popped up in the chat box too, but I think somebody else ended up asking it. Rose asked, how are you securing the cardboard so that it doesn't come up even with the cardboard on top, or even with compost on top? And this is where edging is like very essential.
Yeah, so we recommend doing it kind of section by section. If you do put that cardboard down, you're just going to do all the cardboard at once, and then a gust of wind comes through, you'll have these big sheets of cardboard flying around. So we recommend rolling out the cardboard, overlapping it always, and double layering if you'd like to, and then securing it with compost. And that compost is enough to hold it down because you're not leaving it with just compost for very long. You might be planting directly into it, in which case you'll be rolling out irrigation and then putting that mulch on top. Or you might just be going directly towards putting the mulch on top, letting it compost in place and planting later. But in any case, you're really not leaving cardboard and compost for very long. And so it usually is enough to be able to secure it.
Yeah, ideally when you're laying out that cardboard, you've got your first layer going down, the other one's overlapping on top, then that next one's overlapping on top. So you don't have cardboard edges sticking out except for like on the edges of your landscape. And then on those edges, that's where you're doing that edging, where you're digging in that triangle like 6 inches down so the cardboard tucks in nicely. So you're not having edges flying around everywhere, if that makes sense. Perfect. Our next question is from Jenny in Santa Rosa, and she was asking about a recap for the Santa Rosa rebate program, which I'll definitely include in the follow-up resource email. But just to go over it really quickly, there is a cash for grass program that is typically 75 cents per square foot, but right now it's $1.50 per square foot that you can get from the city. Additionally, they have an irrigation efficiency upgrade for $100 max. So this is where they could help provide an irrigation conversion kit where you can convert your valve like at the source to do drip irrigation, or you can convert a sprinkler like on site of your garden to do drip irrigation, but they can help cover the cost of doing that irrigation conversion. And this is for lawns that are being currently irrigated. So there is like a requirement for that pre-inspection, which is where you do need to call the city and either get pre-qualified over the phone or have somebody come out and like investigate your landscape to make sure that you qualify for the program before you get started. Thanks for asking.
So we had a comment come up in the chat from Stacy, who said she was planning on, I was planning to sheet mulch over Bermuda grass without solarization and top cardboard with arbor mulch. Is a compost layer necessary? So I would say we definitely sheet mulched over Bermuda grass in the past without solarization. It's not necessary. It's really, if it's just pervasive, it's an option. I would try and scrape and dig out the Bermuda grass where you can. And then we recommend using compost because it really helps jumpstart that whole process of decomposition. A lot of times with lawn or with soil that has been, with a lawn planted on it, it's become fairly compacted over time because we are usually stepping on lawns. And so if you think about that pie chart that had that 25% water, 25% air, 45% mineral content, and 5% of organic matter, soil that has had turf planted over it for a long time has less of the capacity to store water and less oxygen in it because it's very compacted. And so putting that compost down really helps bring in the microorganisms that are necessary for decomposition and can help just help the process of building really healthy soil. I wouldn't say that it's 100% necessary. You can go for your project without it. However, it can help bring, jumpstart that microbial life that'll begin the process of building the organic matter in your soil and create that really spongy soil that is great at storing water and supporting plant life.
And I hope that covers, Nancy also asked a question of, can you explain compost again? What kind and how deep?
Yeah, so we recommend using an organic compost. Typically in projects, we've used the Clean Green compost from Grab and Grow. And it is kind of it's a great compost for native plants. It's pretty coarse. And so that's typically what we've used with Daily Ox, but there are a lot of other purveyors of materials, and there's a lot of other composts that you can go with. You're going to be getting a couple yards of, depending on the size of your landscape, you'll be getting a small mountain of compost, and it can be fairly expensive. And there's no need to go for that top grade compost that you would mix into, say, like a vegetable garden bed that's just really, really composted. You can go for the less expensive composts that are out there.
Perfect. And then let's see here. Donald has a question that I don't know if we'll have the exact answer to, but he's asking if embers from a wildfire will ignite any of the materials that we've talked about today.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we're not subject matter experts on that. So I would defer to Fire Safe Marin and their recommendations, or that's a really great place to start. Any kind of organic material is combustible. And so following Fire Safe Marin's guidelines will really help you create that healthy garden space.
Oh, thank you, Beth. That was so kind. Beth said, thank you for the information. It was very helpful. Our next question is from David R. asking, and I also don't know if we know the answer to this question, if solarizing and cardboard sheet mulching works on poison oak. I don't think we have personal experience with that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've been fortunate enough at Daily Ox not to have to work in spaces where there's poison oak. And so I don't have any personal experience with that. But we always love those challenging questions that help us grow. And so what we typically do if we're stumped is to do a little bit of research and then share that information out in that follow-up email so that everybody can learn from that question. And that's a really good one.
Our next question, which I can answer, Annie, for once, is how important is it to cap off sprinkler heads when sheet mulching? Can it be done when we are ready to plant instead? We're getting Mulch Madness materials delivered tomorrow. And Pablo, I'm so glad to hear you're taking advantage of the Mulch Madness program. We love that. I would say, yes, you definitely want to cap off your sprinkler heads before you sheet mulch, and here's why. So right now, when you turn on your irrigation system, you can see where any sprinkler pops up, right? And as soon as you sheet mulch that landscape, the cardboard is going to be covering your irrigation system. And it's going to be really hard for you to cut through that cardboard or even just figure out where your sprinklers were to begin with. So what I would do tomorrow is I would go ahead and, grab some flags, grab some sort of marker, anything you can use to mark where those sprinklers are, and go ahead and turn on your irrigation system and make sure you mark where all of your sprinkler heads are. If anything, like if you just got to sheet mulch before you do your irrigation conversion, like good for you. Just make sure you know where those sprinkler heads are so that you can go back and dig them out and cap them easily. And I would even say take like the 5 minutes to go ahead and dig out those sprinkler heads too when you mark them. So that way you're just going to the irrigation store and you're buying those caps. It's really that simple. You're just going to like Wyatt, for example, and you just go and buy the caps that you need, twist off the sprinklers and twist on a cap. And then I would also say choose one sprinkler that will be your drip conversion, and then leave that one. So you might cap all of the other ones and dig those ones back in. You don't have to flag those ones anymore, but leave the one that you're going to convert later on. Maybe leave a hole around it, leave a flag next to it, so you know where it is when you're going back to convert that later on. And I actually do have an existing resource on online as well for doing that sprinkler conversion that's a little bit shorter, and I can go ahead and send that in the follow-up email as well. But yeah, definitely mark those before you sheet mulch. And then I don't know if we know this, but we'll try. Kathy wants to know how much of the rebate can be used on materials besides plants.
That's a really great question for the folks with the city of Santa Rosa. And if you have questions about their rebate, you can always call that number that is going to be included in the follow-up email and ask those types of questions to one of their representatives.
I will put the email address in our chat box right now so everybody gets it.
Great. So phone number and email. Perfect.
Oh, and here's the phone number too. Grab that. And I'll send it in our follow-up email too if you don't get a chance to scribble it down. Let's see here. So Debbie says, so assume I have no lawn. I have let my yard go for the past 5 years. I'm on adobe soil. Should I wait until we are beyond the next rainy season prior to sheet mulching my yard? Also, I'm planning to redo the paved walkways in my yard. Should I do that first?
I think that whenever you're ready to sheet mulch, if you're really motivated to do it now is a really great time to do it. And if we get that rainy season, then that'll really give that whole, your layers of cardboard and compost and mulch a chance to decompose a little bit, build that soil health, and be a really receptive area for plants. So now is a good time to do it. I would recommend, let's see, whether you want to do your pathways before or after. You could definitely do them after, that's not a problem. Or you could do them before if you were to spread cardboard out and that mulch and everything, and then you wanted to dig into the mulch a little bit and situate your pathway. If you're doing some type of stone, that would be something you could do now. If you wanted to do a different type of pathway that's something other than like stepping stones, I would recommend doing it before you sheet mulch.
Hope that answers your question, Debbie. Our next question is from Philip. He says, I was told to water soil before and after laying cardboard to kill weeds. Supposedly grows the weeds, which then die under the sun. Sun-starved cardboard, true, false. I'm like, okay, wait, a few words missing here, but basically watering the soil before and after laying cardboard to kill weeds.
I've heard of watering the soil before and after because cardboard, if you're getting it from, really cardboard is going to be very dry. And so watering the soil and then watering the cardboard after just hydrates. And as you layer the compost and cardboard and then the mulch on top, you're kind of sealing in water and moisture. And so that then helps speed up the process of decomposition, and that process would then smother out and kill the unwanted plants there. So that could be a benefit of watering before and after. However, we are in such a drought right now that might not make as much sense.
I do know watering the cardboard is a pretty important step though. So like maybe we could say skip out on watering the lawn, but do make sure you water down that cardboard to jumpstart everything.
Yeah, in periods of not extreme drought, we definitely recommend turning on the sprinklers before you sheet mulch so that the soil is moist, and then giving the cardboard a spray down after you've laid it out so that you are hydrating everything as you can seal it in.
Perfect. And then we have wood laying circular brick patio areas planted in between with ground cover, such as thyme or other plants, cut down on water use. Is it worth it?
Well, certainly having areas that you're not watering would cut down on water use, and thyme can be a really great ground cover that doesn't use too much water. And, you know, is it worth it? I would say yes, it's worth it to sheet mulch. It's worth it to eliminate your lawn. It's worth it to come up with creative ways of using that space in a different way. And having some hardscape is really, you know, that can be a really beautiful way of creating these little planting islands, which is actually something that Fire Safe Marin suggests, is having clusters of plants that are then broken up by something that's not flammable. And so having some nice clusters of ground cover, whether it's a thyme or any of the other many beautiful ground covers out there, or just other plants, and then having some brick could be a really lovely way of creating those planting islands. I would say yes, it's worth it to pursue lots of different creative options.
Thyme is just such a beautiful, beautiful ground cover too. I just love it. So Linda has a great question, is what is the calculation for how much compost to buy?
Yeah, okay, that's a really good question. And there are some calculators out there that we lean on heavily. And Serena, I think that can be something that gets included in the follow-up email, where you type in the square footage of your space and then how many inches in depth you would like covered, and it will spit out the amount in cubic yards that you'll need to order.
Yay, volume calculators.
Yeah, that's the best way to go. We use it all the time. You don't need to make those calculations yourself.
Perfect. Thanks for the great question, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question that says, my lawn is already dead. What should I do next? Thanks.
Yeah, okay, so dead lawn, great. Then you can start the sheet mulching process. You can put down that compost and then the cardboard and plant from there, and then cover with arbor mulch, or you can cover with arbor mulch, let it kind of all sit and decompose and plant later on. So there's lots of different options there. You just, because your lawn is dead doesn't mean that you can't sheet mulch. You know, dead lawn is still a great thing to do the process of sheet mulching over, to really start building that soil health, and that dead lawn is actually a good source of carbon.
Exactly. Yeah, we still definitely mulching just to build that soil profile. It's still worth it.
Mm-hmm.
This next question is more of a comment, but I'm excited to give feedback nonetheless. It's from Dawn. It says, if I were to convert a lawn using cardboard or really any covering, I'd graph out the plan first, always good. Choose my plants and place them on the graph and design, also great. Then before laying down the cardboard, run the 1/2 inch black or brown drip lines as appropriate, as well as punch into the line for the 1/4 inch line with emitters, being sure to pull the thin lines through the cardboard. I actually want to say here that most drip line, like the drip line that you get, the 1/2 inch drip line that either has emitters punched into it already or it's blank line, is not actually meant to be fully underground. So typically we put our drip lines like under a little layer of mulch, but we actually wouldn't recommend putting that drip line underneath the cardboard entirely, especially if it has inline emitters. Like in this case, he's got the 1/4 inch line coming out of it with emitters, so that might be okay. But with the inline emitters especially, those are going to suck in dirt if they're covered in too much dirt. So you want to be really careful. Like, of course, we don't like the way the drip lines look either. So we want to cover them with like a nice layer of mulch. And if you've gotten 3 inches of mulch, like you shouldn't have a problem covering those lines. If you start to see the lines again, it's probably a good sign it's time to get a new layer of mulch going in your garden. But just wanted to point out that these lines really aren't meant to be submerged underground. But I love this whole idea of like, planning it all out and creating a beautiful design. And Daily Axe does have tons of resources on our websites to go through that process. So thanks for that comment, Dawn.
I would say too that if you have large plants that are in 5-gallon size containers or higher, like if you're planting large shrubs or even trees, we do recommend planting those before you sheet mulch, just because cutting a hole that's that large into your cardboard is it's a lot of work, and it just is exposing a lot of space. And so it can be easier to plant those large plants before the sheet mulching process.
In my no-dig garden, I use a soaker hose and it's underneath the mulch. That's probably okay. I was referring specifically to like the drip line. That's the plastic, what's it called? I'm blanking, not PVC, polyethylene. There we go, the polyethylene drip line that either has emitters punched into it or is blank. But thanks for the tip, Stacy.
Yeah, they should all be pressure compensating. And so like, the whole hope is that they don't slurp in too much of the particles. But soaker hoses are not pressure compensating. I've never used soaker hoses before. I've definitely seen them in really beautiful gardens. And I think that over time, those do need to be replaced because they have a tendency to get kind of like, they do when you turn them off, kind of suck in some of that particulate matter.
We have one more question. Debbie had a follow-up to her question earlier, and she said, oh, there's more popping up. Great. She said she's planning on a poured concrete walkway. So now that we know that it's a poured concrete walkway coming in, would we recommend sheet mulching before or afterwards?
After.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think you want to pour your concrete. You kind of going to dig that out, create the form. You don't need mulch in that space.
Oh, Dawn says there are several projects with built-in emitters that are intended for subterranean use, including under a new sod lawn. They do not fail due to soil. I believe it. There's like 10 million different irrigation parts out there. And I remember when I was in college, I actually got to take a tour at Hunter Industries, and I got to see some similar products to that. At Daily Axe, we're not quite using those products. We're just using the things you more typically find in like Wyatt Irrigation Supply or at Friedman's, and that would just typically be that polyethylene tubing that comes with like emitters or is blank. But that's a great tip. Thank you, Dawn. Dawn knows what's up. Awesome. I'm wondering if we had any other questions today, or if we might be wrapping up a little bit early, Annie.
Now's a great chance to pick our brains and get in some of those last minute questions. We really appreciate how engaged everybody has been. It's such a pleasure to be able to give these talks and have so much shared in the chat resources and so many questions. And so now's a chance to get in any last minute questions that you might have. We really appreciate you all for being here and for taking the time to learn with us on a Tuesday evening. It's really an honor to be able to share this information. And we might just finish a little early. I'm sure everybody could use the extra 15 minutes in their evening routine.
And like we said, if anybody has any additional questions or any thoughts, I will type my email in the chat box here, serena@dailyaxe.org. Happy to answer any questions or point you towards any resources, especially if I end up not covering those in my follow-up email, which you can expect to see before the end of this week.
I see a couple more questions that came through from Linda asking, are the ideas for designs easily found on the Daily Axe website? So I say we because I just recently left Daily Axe to start a new chapter in my career, but I still feel like I'm part of the Daily Axe team. But Daily Axe has a lot of resources on plant selection. And if you like resources on plant design, the Sonoma Marin Water Saving Partnership developed some really, detailed designs, and those are available for free on their website. And that's where you could get designs that are designed by landscape architects that are really ready for installation. We don't have as many like design templates on our website, just plant ideas and model sites that you can visit in person and see what they all look like once they're installed.
I'm dropping a link for the Sonoma Water Marin Saving Partnership. They've just got tons of, also they list out all of the different rebates for all of the cities in Sonoma County and Marin. So if you're not just from Santa Rosa, which we've mostly been focusing on tonight in terms of rebates, I strongly encourage you to take a look at what other rebates are available to you.
And then there was a question, are there any resources for creating a dog-friendly replacement for dogs? And Serena, as somebody who has had a dog for many years, might have some tips. We don't specifically have tips for dogs. If anybody wants to throw some resources in the chat about that, that would be really interesting.
It's funny because it's not the first time this has come up too, so maybe it's worth considering creating a dog-friendly plant list. But we don't currently have one, unfortunately.
And then tried greenhouse plastic for solarization. As long as it's UV treated, you could get recycled greenhouse plastic for that.
Oh, see, I would have assumed the worry would be about dogs consuming plants that are not dog friendly, but apparently the worry is about their paws and splinters. So maybe a softer or smaller mulch, I don't know. To be continued. Did you see this question that just came in about the greenhouse plastic for solarization?
Yeah, I would say as long as it's UV treated, then you're good to go for using it.
And then Linda, I did put in a link for our water conservation resources page in the chat, which is you could find all of our Transform Your Landscape water-wise plant lists, all of our past webinars that have had to do with sheet mulching and transforming your landscape all in one place. Awesome. I think unless a couple more questions come in, we might be wrapped up for the evening. Well, folks, I think that's it. Like I said, any more additional questions, feel free to email me at serena@dailyaxe.org. And we just want to really thank you all for joining us this evening. Like truly showing your dedication to saving water and making every drop count this summer is so, so important. And we just thank you so much for being here. And Annie, thank you so much for joining us and for teaching this webinar, even though you're officially not part of the Daily Axe team anymore. Just appreciate your wealth of knowledge so much. I've learned so much from you over the years, and it's great to share with everyone.
Oh, I'm so happy that I was able to continue teaching, and it's really fun to be able to share this information. So thank you all for being here, because part of what makes it so fun is your participation and really just seeing, all the comments in the chats. And so you all make it fun. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great evening and look forward to receiving that follow-up email with everything we talked about tonight. Bye, everybody.
Bye.